Hello and welcome back to Pirate Radio. I'm Commander X. We're joined with the usual guys and special guest Ombrack as we're taking a look at the upcoming Season 27 of ETF2L, all the roster moves and all the preseason playoffs. So, Epley, why don't we get straight into it and just pick us an arbitrary place to start?
I think, honestly, the bit which makes most sense is just to kind of go in the way that ETF2L starts with. So start off with the AMS team, named Team. Unless everyone has been living under a rock somehow forever, we know that the AMS team itself is probably one of arguably the most impressive of all of the teams currently involved in the preseason playoffs. We have such legends, titans of the game as Serotonin, Smear, Tiger, Tom, AMS, and Scram. Like I said, it's quite good because considering there's 12 preseason playoff teams, this team actually does include proper recognizable Prem players. So just the only recent changes have really been the fact that Tiger and Tom have been fixed onto their roles, with Tiger playing Pocket and Tom on Roma. Anything interesting people have to say about these guys?
I think it's an interesting place to start because, I mean, I guess for anyone who's living under a rock and doesn't know the format of the playoffs, we should probably just touch on that slightly. Like, there's 12 teams playing for 4 spots in the season. And I think this is the first time that playoffs has really looked anything like this, because traditionally, for those who haven't been around for years, like some people, playoffs originally were like a sort of last resort measure, and teams like this AMS team, in almost every season in the past, would have just been placed straight into Prem. It's sort of one of those teams that kind of goes straight in as like a real playoff contender, you'd say. But the new sort of ETF2L regime is going very hard on the everyone kind of qualifying route. So this AMS team being dropped into playoffs is a bit alien to me. I kind of feel like it's not really what the playoffs are about, but they're probably like yeah, having said that, they're like the number one. Probably like, I guess they are the number one seed because they're literally seeded, right?
Yes, yeah. As far as I've seen.
Yeah, so they're literally the number one seed, and I guess for good reason. I mean, there's 12 fucking teams in the playoffs, so I can't say I've followed everyone's scrims. I've never even heard of half of these teams until the playoffs were announced. Pretty sure half of these teams didn't exist until playoffs were announced, with people scrambling rosters together at the last minute. But from what I have seen, scrims and streams, this AMS team is, yeah, easily like, yeah, above and away number one seed at the moment. A couple of people in and around them, but I'd say, but
with the team, it's like one of the only teams which is part of the preseason playoffs, which also should be in the regular season playoffs as well. Like I said, it is kind of a bit funny with the way that the system's going. Like, this biologic should be like a top 4 team anyway in Prem, and the whole them qualifying through the same system as, you know, some of the lesser known teams. You can see why they're doing it, but yeah, like historically, it wouldn't have been so much of a thing. We were considering their popularity and the fact that they've actually, like I said, of all the teams on this preseason playoff list, they're probably the one which has been around for the longest with their setup, just because it was probably about halfway through last season they actually started putting themselves together, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm started to look for players even before the last season was over, and I thought he picked Serotonin pretty early on. He picked Crab pretty early on, and I think Smear was available. Like, he had no team last season, right? So I think the core of the team has been playing together for like a month or so.
Yeah, a weird thing kind of happened. Like, AMS was obviously on the 7 roster that went to Rewind. He did great, and there was like no conflict within the team. But he decided he was going to try his hand. Like, he got speaking to Muma at Rewind, and he decided he was going to try his hand as a complete rookie at playing on a semi-professional Overwatch team. Unsurprisingly, that didn't work out for him, and he did not stay on that team for long. So he kind of left.
I've heard it was a good week though.
He kind of left 7, quit TF2. Like, so he left the best team in Europe, second best team in the world, quit TF2. And then came back a week later and had to start from scratch, like, again, after years of sort of like climbing his way back to the top, kind of to the top. Sort of hadn't been in a top 2 team since, like, I guess BK, which was even like sort of like a questionable era of TF2 when AMS was last in sort of a finalist caliber team. But yeah, then he sort of found himself immediately kind of having to not even just sort of like start again, because if you remember before 7, he was actually in a team, like the core of his team was sort of like him, Ali, Pascari, I guess we'd highlight as all the stars. And that was sort of like his group. Like he was very like nurturing of Pascari, and he always said to me like, actually, I don't know if he was drunk or something, but he said to me one night that for the rest of his TF2 career, all he cared about was seeing Pascari do well. I don't know what he was talking about, but it's kind of funny that now Pascari and Ali have sort of moved on and joined, like, you know, they're in like a super team for all intents and purposes now. And AMS is playing preseason playoffs like 2 months later. That's kind of a weird turn of events.
But he is top seed.
He is top seed.
It's true.
So,
yeah.
Logically,
should like that team should smash like basically everyone they go against.
They should, but I'm not sure if they will actually. Like they should. They're seed 1, but when you look at their recent logs, there's some upset that you shouldn't. That like it's weird. They drew to Nunya, I think, or they even lost to Nunya on product. So I'm not. They should win, but I'm not sure. I think that's in all the teams involved, it's the team with the most tilt potential. Like with Tiger and Tom, we know they can tilt. AMS has this weird behavior in game where sometimes he just completely gives up and just fool around. So I don't know if. I think they expect to roll through the playoffs, and if something goes wrong at some point, I wouldn't be surprised to see them completely crash.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That
man.
is actually Oh no, go on.
I was gonna say I'm with you, Ombrack. Like they're definitely like looking on the paper, they're for sure like the number 1 seed, and that you expect them to win or to do well or to the very least qualify. But not only are there some other very capable teams in and amongst the playoffs, but this sort of core, the Serotonin AMS. I don't know, like I guess it's not really a core because originally they had Happy, and you really like you put that core together with sort of teams of the past, and they had a lot of like tilt potential. And I know that Tom obviously comes out of Champ and Tiger as well, which was a team that sort of some underperformance issues. So there's a lot of like track record of underperforming in this team. So I don't think it's like so open and shut saying they're just gonna like we expect them to smash it and just sort of beat everyone and instantly qualify. I wouldn't be surprised if it was quite tough for them, but yeah, like on paper they're the strongest team.
As I said, just the fact that their soldiers are the 2 guys from Champ, who obviously last season started off pretty strong and then end up slowly collapsing more and more until they basically ended the season just not as a team. They just had a full-on like meltdown. That probably is like a pretty legitimate thing to bring out. Like,
but they're on different roles now, which is actually something I was saying all along. I always felt like the soldier roles they played didn't make sense in the current meta. Like, sort of, I just call it like in terms of roaming, like the Drac roamer, which is pretty much particularly in Europe, it's like the go-to style now. Tiger for me was never like a player particularly well set for that role. He likes to play quite loose, quite free, and like use his skills to have a large impact on the game. Whereas Tom was a lot more of a like the hard worker, like the diligent guy who's gonna like plug away at demos and map talks and things like that, and really get like a solid sort of like a more foundation of the game together. In the current meta, I feel like the DM impact soldier is like the pocket, whereas like you want to like if you're not going to play that role, rather if you're not going to be the the really careful team player, you're way more suited to pocket at the moment. So I think I think it's good that they're doing it this way around now, because I mean it's a coincidence, right? That they ended up with Tom. Like that wasn't the plan originally. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but Tom quit first, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, as I said, Tom quit 2 or 3 times since the end of like last season. So I'm pretty sure there's no way they could have done too much. And I think what Ombrack's about to say is about how AMS did start off like wanting to be he was like playing pocket and then switched to scout and then back to pocket like a couple times. It was there was a lot of things being up in the air.
Yeah, I think he started as scout, and then they thought that funds was available, so they picked up funds. So he went to soldier, and like as AMS always does, he just decided that he wanted to play scout again. So there's shifts in their lineup just because of AMS.
He is the king of self-sabotage, this guy. Like, he was in the best team, and he left, came back and made a team on his main class, his best class, and then somewhere along the way decided he was going to play Pocket Scout. The most, like, sort of discipline-requiring role in TF2. Decided for some reason, as like a sort of like a freewheeling DM player, that's what he was going to do in his new, very keen team. I don't know, man. It's weird to me. I really wish he'd actually stuck on Soldier. But having said that, the soldiers they have now are pretty tight. And Scrab's actually like, I always thought Scrab was like, I don't know what happened to Scrab, like after Dogs. He sort of didn't play for anyone. I don't know where he went, but I always thought he was like, he was always good, you know?
He was always the player who stood out alongside Spud in the original Dogs team.
Yeah, I don't know if he stopped playing or if he was just like playing with friends or casually, but yeah, he's like a good player. So yeah, I don't know where we're going with this discussion, to be honest, but this is a good team. But as Ombrack said, you never really know with these guys. AM's teams have had a lot of issues in the past, and the core is looking quite similar to like what I've seen of AM's in the past, I'd say. I don't know.
And when you look at logs, like I just went through logs from the last week. The only 2 bad results I saw was where one drew to Nunya and one lost to Lopender, I guess, and that doesn't really surprise me. Like, if there's a team to beat them, it's Lopender.
Those are like, if there's any teams, I would expect Prem teams to like get tilted playing against and end up like throwing as a result. It's going to be Nunya or it's going to be Lopender. I would have thought that's the guys most successfully utilizing the psychological warfare of the game, you know?
Yeah, so like luckily for them, Lopender's in Prem already, so they won't have to play them, but Nunya is still there. And I think Nunya is the living proof that AM's team can just tilt and fall.
Yeah. That's going to be a Nunya's tactic for the whole playoffs, I assume, you know? Just try and get into their heads. We did quite a bit on the AMS team. We'll move on down the list to the new look ChampGG. I think at one point there was something mentioned about how they weren't officially sponsored by ChampGG, and then I don't know quite what that. Either way, they've got the name ChampGG.K.
I'm pretty sure they're nothing to do with. I don't know why they still have the name, because I'm pretty sure I've heard they're not affiliated with ChampGG anymore. They're just literally using the same roster they had last season when they were ChampGG.
Yeah, maybe they're just waiting on a better name to turn up. I don't know.
It's probably easier to refer to that than Adiski team, which seems to be the other go-to. So,
well, like you said,
we've
got a Adiski on demo. We've got Babs playing Medic, Polygon on Pocket, Samsky on Roma, and then we have Credu and Sorax on Scouts, is my understanding. Unless anyone has anything different. Yeah. This is another team which has been going on for quite a while. On the scale of these preseason playoff teams, they've been playing quite a bit. They've been pretty eager to practice, pretty eager to get themselves sorted as far as I've seen. Got some pretty decent results from what I've seen as well. We got any interesting information on them?
They're my favorites. I think right now they're the best team in the playoffs, as in they have the best results and they are the more consistent team, because I think Adiski knows where he wants to go with this team. He just wants to go with good high players and bring them to Prem, and they know where they want to go. So there's no they don't say we want to be the second best team in Europe like Champ did in the past, and I think that's why they're really strong at the moment. They know how good they are. They know what they can do and what they can't do, and I think that's why they are really good right now.
Yeah, I think they have they're not like the most talented roster like that you've ever seen, but I think they have a really good balance in this team. It reminds me, maybe not to the same extent, but like the original Reason team, where it's just everyone on the team really fits well within their role. Like they have a DC setup as this, core of the team, the main caller, gets a fair amount of heals, but uses them really well. And I wasn't familiar with a lot of these players before, like the Soldier combo, Polygon and Samsky. It seemed to I watched I think it was a D-Ski stream the other day when they were playing, and everyone's just I don't know, I was really pleasantly surprised by how kind of fluid everything seemed for them. It wasn't what I was expecting. I played against them a few times before they had Sorax. I don't think I've played against them with this lineup. And we had close games, we won some, we lost some, but I only ever looked at it from the perspective of my team's playing really bad, and when actually looking at them, they're really well balanced. And now they have Sorax. It's probably they were probably missing some deathmatch with the old scout combo. They had a really solid player in Credu. Samsky was quite a very well fitted to the modern Roma. Polygon's a bit of an unknown factor for me, as was Babs the Medic, but I think with Sorek, like this is like a really complete team now. I mean, then honestly, I don't expect to see them play AM's team in the playoffs because they're on opposite sides of the bracket. And well, I say that we have to play them, so maybe I'm counting my team out. But if I'm being neutral, I expect like you would expect them to sort of win all their games and get instantly promoted into Prem and not actually play AM's team in this playoffs. But I wouldn't actually be at all surprised if they say we managed to upset them, or say we managed to maybe not upset them, say we managed to beat them with the Perminators or whatever the fuck we're called now. And AM's team for some reason also went to the lower bracket. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Champ/Adisi's team actually beat that team, because something they have that like AM's team doesn't have is the balance that I was talking about. Like everyone seems really well fitted to the roles, and like they are all. There's no one here who's sort of like just a name. They're all like kind of. I don't know. Babs is like an unknown quantity for me still, but apart from that, they all seem to sort of fit into a system very well. And Adisi is like a super like chill and skilled caller. Yeah, I'm actually expecting like pretty good things from them, which I like a month ago I totally wasn't. I think they're the most like pleasantly surprising team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you've got to give some respect to Adisi for like obviously a lot of these guys, like most of them I only really do from like random pug champs and this and that kind of games. Like to have a team as solidified as they currently are, looking to be as strong as they are, like going into a quite possibly / probably Prem next season. I think it's quite impressive the fact that he's managed to do that with a lot of unknown quantities. You know, like I said, Polygon was the last I heard of him. Like last season before, like people always said he was like a good high soldier, but not on the scale that you would expect to see from the teams like playing in these kind of preseason things. So I don't know, every time I've seen Adisi stream, it seemed like he's got a really good setup with them. Like Adisi himself is having has a lot of high impact games in how he's playing with them, but just his way of like calling with them, and like I said, like it isn't kind of expected a team with those kind of people to be like a bit messy, to be a bit like you would expect like a kind of PugChamp style game. But of what I've seen from like Adisi's stream, it does seem like quite a solid, coherent team, which is always nice to see, you know.
Yeah, and I think he used his previous champ experience to good use, because I know he lost kind of some motivation when things went sour with Tom Tiger and stuff, and now he just wants to play like chill, and I think that's why they play cool, because their calls are okay. No one is screaming in the chat, and yeah, I think as they are chill, they play like for fun, not for fun. They play to win, of course, but they draw the line between tryharding too much, and they found the right balance, I think.
Yeah, like I said, not doing what Champ did last season, where you set yourself an impossible bar to reach. Yeah. They're being sensible with how they're going about setting up the team and how they're setting their expectations. I think it's good. I think it's good if the team which is set up like that does end up doing quite well. Kind of gives you some solid hope for things. Anything else people got to mention about Champ before we move on?
No, nothing else to say, man. I would say, like, at this point, when looking like at the teams, for me, like these two teams, because the playoffs, they're seeded, right? So the top 4 teams get buys in the first round. And for me, this Adisi team and Team, AM's team, whatever, why does no one have proper names? It's really infuriating. But both of these teams, like them being like, I guess, seeded in like the top 4, it's like, that's cool, that's fine. But after those two teams, this whole thing starts to get like really foggy for me, and I don't really understand the manner of the seeding and how it's been done, because I don't feel like the other 10 teams, no one, like I'm just completely excluding my team from any consideration because I'm obviously inherently biased there, but no one else stands out for me as deserving any kind of seeding advantage of the other 10 teams. I feel like those two are like quite clearly like exceptions, but I don't really understand the kind of seeding mechanism that's been done here. So now that we're like going to get onto the rest of the teams, I don't know.
Are they seeded beyond like the top 4 teams and the rest of the teams?
I assume
like, is there like a 1, 2, however many? Like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Or is it literally just these are the top 4, so they get a buy in the first round, then it's a free for all?
I'm not entirely sure.
I think effectively that's what's happened. Even if they've seeded further, I don't know if that's really affected the other matchups. Like possibly just looking at the things, like just obviously it's getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but we have Perminators against Team CoolestMaster in the first setup, which logically that would be a quite reasonably highly seeded team against one of the lower seeded teams. So it might be that the seeding is also accounting for those kind of matchups, like Lego against another, like, you know, Lego should be pretty highly seeded against another team which should be pretty far down. But I don't think it was actually made particularly clear, and probably could have asked an admin, but kind of forgot. You know,
Well, they've kind of stated that they've used what was the wording of it? I don't know where the hell it was written now. Oh yeah, for the team's seeding, recent match results as well as previous team accomplishments were taken into account. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I assume it means because, like, Loli Squad, for example, are seeded top 4 here. I guess it just means in virtue of the fact they're a team that existed before this season.
Yeah.
What did they do?
Yeah.
They came second in high.
I think so.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
not really an achievement when you're talking about Prem playoffs, but so I guess what they mean is they are a stable team that's sort of proven themselves to be dependable. I mean, for my taste, that's a bit of a weird starting point for seeding a preseason Prem playoff, but, you know, again, inherently biased here.
But that's a reward for stability, isn't it? Like, ETF2L has had quite a long-standing, I guess, emphasis on stability over random Prem mixes.
What are you saying, mate?
I feel like for Loli Squad, in the high finals, they lost to a Golden Cap. I think like it was 5-4, and they lost to like almost nothing. So I like the fact that you're right when you say there are two top teams, clear cut. The discussions about them, and I like that when you can't really say who is the best team amongst the other, you pick stability as a point to decide, and I think that's good. And I think that's why it's good that Nunya is in the top 4 as well. I think it's important to reward people for being stable, for playing together as a team for a long time. And in these playoffs, beside Adiski's team and Am's teams, I think everybody can beat everybody. And the skill level is so tight. You have to pick something to say this team is going to be top 4 and this one is not going to be. And I think it's cool that stability was the decisive factor.
Yeah, well, plus Loli Squad does have 2 admins on their team, so, you know, admin bias showing up again, innit? Classic admin abuse. Like I said, we got the clear top 2. Do you want to delve into the other 10? We start off on the list with Nunya, which, to my knowledge, no great changes. Having a quick look at their roster, they're still happy with Dog, Ratslayer, Illan, Pappy, Crafty, and Earl. Didn't they have Hems last season?
Yeah,
I can't remember what happened last season. Yeah, so they've had at least one change in the roster, but effectively staying the same. I think a couple times over the off season there was Nunya folding, then Nunya not folding, then all kinds of things happening. But they seem pretty happy, stable now. I'm pretty sure the Nunya boys are going to be looking to prove something significant in the old preseason playoffs, because there's been some big Nunya style I don't want to say trash talking, but, you know, interesting discussions they've been leading on the forums. So I think they're going to be seriously looking to like pound some of the teams and prove they deserve a spot in Prem. See, they got 7th last season in Prem by virtue of, I don't want to be too rude, right? But by virtue of 3 out of 6 off-classing halfway through the season and subsequently getting stuck with a solid 8th. And there was a debate over whether or not Nunya were gonna, you know, get to keep their spot because they got 7th, or whether they'd have to be like dropped down and have to do the preseason things. Obviously, admins decided they have to go through the preseason playoffs same as any other team, but they get their top 4 kind of seeding. So I would have thought that team's going to be pretty interested in making it through Prem and showing that they deserve actual Prem spot.
I think it's interesting because the way it used to be, like, I don't think the rules were ever sort of clarified when we went from the old Div system to the Swiss system, because the way it always used to be is the team that plays 2nd in Div 1, what is now high, would play a playoff against the team that finished 7th in Prem. Winner just goes straight to Prem. No one this was kind of like before a really formal preseason playoff era. I don't think the rules were ever like officially clarified when we changed Div systems. So it's kind of like it's an interesting approach. that the admins are taking. But yeah, I personally don't have any experience playing against them. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of these teams in the middle. I haven't played Loli Squad. I haven't played Nunya personally. I'm not too familiar with them because I haven't played for like a year. So
I think the thing about Nunya is I think it's the team that relies the most on what maps they're gonna play on, because they have maps they're really, really weak on, and maps that they can really shine. And I think, yeah, the map pick are going to be really, really important about Nunya.
So if you were playing them, what maps would you pick on Ombrack?
I'm not sure I'm gonna speak for them. But yeah, I think that if people are gonna play against them, should take a look at logs, and the answer is gonna be pretty obvious, I think.
Very sneaky.
TF.
But,
okay,
and
so
there's two Nunya. There's the Nunya that is goofing around on bugs and in PCWs, and the Nunya that plays in regular game, in official games. I don't know if you remember, but they were in qualifiers for Prem last season. No one expected them to play well, and I think they were the first team to qualify for Prem. And I think that just shows that when things are getting tight and things are getting important, they can just play really well and just play better than people expect them to play.
They're a strong Gully team, right? I remember Adisi or someone saying that on their stream. They were going to scrim Gully. I remember them saying. So Gully, is that the map on Bragg? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm not going to say anything more.
Is that the advice you're giving to the washed up gamers? Should we come across them?
Guaranteed, everyone pick Gully against Nunya. Easy win, free win. On Brack's guarantee right there. Right, yeah. Just because a little bit less to say about Nunya, we can move on to Loli Squad if we're all good for that. No real change with Loli Squad other than they one of their players, Gink, is out for exam type reasons. They brought in Sheepy now. So their roster looks like Bloodus and Sheepy on Scouts, Tobbs, Ignis on Soldiers, Fear on Demo, Mentalex on Medics. So like I said, only one real change. As we mentioned, they got second in high last season, so you could almost end up, if a lot of weird things happen, effectively that situation you were saying about before, where second place in high goes against seventh in Prem, kind of, but you'd have to have some kind of weird setup. But just from my bit of like talking to the Loli Squad guys, and I think played them in a couple random games and stuff, I would expect them to be like of the 10 kind of like whatever teams, just because it's a more stable team. They've been playing together for like quite a while and they seem pretty friendly with each other. I would expect them to do at least reasonably well. Give me the info. Give me the inside info. What we got?
I think there was a thread on TFTV about like the playoffs, and someone talked about Loli Squad, like how well could they fare against the other team, and Adiski just put two logs where they just rolled them. I mean, and Bloody said something interesting in my opinion. He said that these days Loli Squad are going through a rough spot. They're playing really bad, and like it's not a good timing, of course, because the playoffs are coming, and you do want to be bad in playoffs. So I think it's how well will they play really depends on if they can step up and play at their actual level.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, like, I've only seen, in terms of actual play, I've only seen what I saw on like various streams where, literally, I'm not gonna lie, they got shat on every time. Like, they lost like 5-0, 6-1 in like 15 minutes every time, and that wasn't against like top teams. That was against like, by top teams I mean like top Prem teams. That was against like a DSK team, and there's this sort of level, like the sort of, probably, if we're being reasonable, probably the mid Prem level. That's where I see a DSK's team. So for me personally, I don't have much expectation for this team. If I was going to be really critical of the current system, I would say this kind of team and this whole like this idea of the stable teams getting into Prem playoffs in virtue of their stability. I feel like this is where it gets really muddy, and a lot of the like lower teams on the playoff spectrum have sort of got there by getting results against or close games against teams like Loli Squad. I'm not sure. Like maybe they were like good like a month or two ago or something, and I like just wasn't paying attention at the right time. But I mean, to be honest, I really haven't seen anything from them. So like I've been kind of paying attention to the TF2 again for the past like month or so. I really haven't seen like anything from them to suggest they're really like I don't expect them. I mean, some of the teams here are so unknown to me. So maybe they're going to get some wins somewhere in the bracket, but I can't say like that I feel like this team justifies their top 4 seeding at the moment, at least in terms of like ability. Obviously, if you want to have the stability discussion, then that's like a different issue. But in terms of who do I expect to place top 4 and qualify for Prem, this team's like, I don't know. I guess they're not at the bottom of my list because
there's certainly some others that
there's certainly some other like really weird teams here, but I mean, I feel like they're probably like middle of the bracket.
I guess, but it depends what weight you put on like the PCW results compared to like their results last season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first
like
to
compared
attest.
to like Nunya being in like on the same level as them.
Yeah, like I'll be the first to attest. I think the emphasis put on scrim results, especially about the ETF2L admins, is not. I don't really agree with it that much because I know for a fact like I don't scrim like to win. Like my team only played like, and this is just an example. Like, this is not excuses. Like my team's pretty bad at the moment, but when I scrim, like we've played like 10 maps over the past 3 weeks. Pretty much every time I'll pick like our worst map to practice it. So we're scrimming like 90% of our games on maps we're probably worse at than others. So we're not like getting results that are truly representative of our ability. And I'm sure it's the same for other teams. So scrim results, you can't put too much stock in it, but outside of that, all Loli Squad did was actually playing high. And I mean, the quality of teams last season, even in Prem, was awful compared to this season. The quality is so much better now. So placing second in high for me, it's like okay, stability and all that, but it's sort of like a blank slate as far as I'm concerned. They really kind of have it all to prove still. And same goes for quite a lot of the teams in here, including my own. Like my team has it all to prove as well, so it's not like a sort of high horse like rant, but I think there's a lot of questionable mysteries in here for me.
But then on the flip side, who would you put instead?
What, in playoffs? No, I'd have them in playoffs for sure.
No, as in the top 4. Seed.
Oh,
yeah,
I wouldn't have done it anything like this. I would have put Ams and Adiski straight into Prem, and I would have chopped like 4 teams off the bottom and had an 8-team bracket. I wouldn't. Would that be 8 teams? No, 2 teams. I would have cut 2 teams off the bottom, and I would have put 2 teams straight into Prem and had like 8 teams play for 2 spots. I think that would have been the most sensible thing to do because you have such a clear like top 2 here.
Yeah, but there's no clear bottom 2. That's the point. There's no clear bottom 2. Like
I suppose so, but for me, the bottom 2 ain't gonna make it anyway. You know what I mean? Like the bottom 2 are sort of filling up the numbers.
How do you know who are gonna be the bottom 2 teams?
Okay, I don't know who the bottom 2 are gonna be, but I'd say most likely Nunya, Loli Squad. These are not the bottom 2. These are just a list I'm making. Nunya, Loli Squad, Lego, and my team. I'd probably have them in slots 3 to 6. So whoever's in slots 7 to 8, for me, they don't really come into it. They're just sort of padding out the numbers, if you know what I mean. And to expand the whole bracket for the sake of accommodating number 7 and number 8 doesn't really suit me as the best system. They're sort of just making up the numbers so that the other guys can play. Maybe they do a good upset and have some nice results, who knows? But I feel like the entire playoff system has been not compromised, but made worse for the sake of accommodating the teams that probably aren't going to make much of an impact, arguably at the expense of some of the teams that may do. I mean, this is all speculation, but I feel like there's probably a better way of doing this that involves putting some teams straight into Prem. Because that's how it always used to be. It was always like the obvious teams just went to Prem, and playoffs was used to determine the teams we really can't choose between, the teams where there's no discernible way of saying who actually deserves a spot. That was what playoffs was for. It wasn't for every team that wanted to play Prem to qualify. The teams that obviously should be in Prem were just put straight into Prem. That was how it always was before. And for me, that was a bit better because, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot wrong with the way like this system goes. I mean, it's going to be nice to see and it's going to be nice to take part in, I guess, as long as we can get a team together. But I feel like it's a bit of a weird way of doing things.
The thing is, from my point of view, just since we got into this discussion, because you've got 12 teams in a preseason playoff kind of setup, but you still only got that 1 week to play it in, it's like you have the same amount of time as like most other seasons, but you've got so many more games to fit in. And just if it was me, just from a practical point of view, from the sake of like if I was an admin and just didn't want to have everyone like freaking out, I would have given just a bit more time for people to like play the games in. I would have announced it like, you know, been like, okay, guys, we want to announce by like, you know, a week earlier or something, and just give a couple more weeks. Sorry, just give another week so you've got like some more time for people to play their games in. Just because, like, a few people I've been talking to as it is, like Kato's team and Lego, and I can't remember who else was saying about it. Like, there've been some issues just in terms of with so many like best of 3 games to like be played. To me, considering most of these teams, like quite a decent amount of them, would have been pretty set on playing preseason players for quite a while. I feel like you could have just given everyone a lot more time to like play their games in, and it would have just felt like way less rushed. I would have thought that's one of the biggest things I kind of think, because like you obviously, the whole point of preseason playoffs is that you've got a fairly even playing field, and whatever team plays the best will make it through and make Prem. That's just like how it works. But then by compressing that into quite a short amount of time, you're just making it more likely that dumb things are going to happen. Like some team's going to need like 2 mercs. Like I said, like for Lego's first game of the preseason playoffs, which, just to clarify, although we haven't really gone through this that much, the first game is single elimination, to my understanding. So the first game, that's a best of 3. If you lose that, you're out.
Yeah.
And it was set up initially, they managed to rearrange it, but it was set up that Lego was going to like require 2 mercs for that game, and like the actual warning in terms of when that game was going to be and how it was going to be set up wasn't given in that sensible time frame. I wouldn't have thought. I don't know. I just from the players' point of view and from the admin's point of view, I would have just allowed the whole preseason playoffs to take place over a longer period of time, just to minimize dumb shit happening.
I think it's weird when you look at how the rest of the ETF2L season works and even the end of season playoffs work. That those games are quite spread out. So teams like Cadis's team can function, you know, only playing like 1 game a week. You know, even at playoffs, you're still pretty much only playing 1, maybe 2 games a week. But then for this single week, you're condensing way more games than at any other point of the season. So teams are, you know, you set up and build a team that can function within the season. That's your end goal. But then you've got to have this week where you're playing way more than you ever sort of planned or expected to.
Yeah, like just to clarify, like just because people are probably going to see it as like bias, this point isn't being made because I'm thinking of teams like Cadis's team. There's a valid argument where if you're not able to play like 4 like officials a week on different days, maybe you shouldn't be in Prem, right? There's like an argument to be made. It's not necessarily with that in mind, just for the sake of having a better setup, you know? Just not compressing this into a crazy short amount of time. I said just like 1 week for all these games is like, just seems a bit crazy to me, to be honest.
It seems weird because like I don't get why they couldn't just open, like, because the off season was pretty long, right?
It was.
Like they could have just, well, I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing, but couldn't they have just opened signups 1 week earlier, closed signups 1 week earlier, and then had like 2 weeks for the playoffs? I mean,
well, like, especially for these teams, because none of these teams obviously were in Prem, so none of them really had to play. Like a couple of teams would have had to play high playoffs, but none of them would have had to play the super long like playoff kind of things. So these are the teams which most likely would have had the longest off season anyway. So with all of that off season, you would have thought you could have just organized it slightly easier for everyone.
I guess they probably didn't expect so many teams to be in Prem playoffs, but I mean, I would argue there shouldn't be this many teams in Prem playoffs, and they should have just pruned the numbers a little bit. I guess opinions diverge about who should be pruned and who actually sort of deserves the spot, but I don't know. It seems, it's a wobbly system. Like I would get on board with that. Like, I mean, I'll use my team as an example. We're not the best example because we don't like to play that much anyway, but we're gonna have a full roster for our first game on Sunday. But after that, it's sort of like it's a really like rough week for us, and it's completely unavoidable. Like, for example, on Monday, I go to a concert that I've had booked for like a year. So that's like, can't cancel that. On Wednesday, I have a funeral. And it's sort of like, that's kind of it at that point. We're missing like 2 days out of like 4 days that we can play. Like I guess I'm the main caller. So there's like nothing I can do, I mean, my hands are just kind of tied by everything. And those are 2 completely like, unreschedulable things, completely beyond my control. So it's sort of like, and we're going to have players missing other days as well. So it's sort of like, it's for us at least, it's a big clusterfuck. And yeah, you can say it's sort of like it's our fault, or it's like, it's our own responsibility to be available. But I mean, let's say it turns out that we are a desirable, let's say like hypothetically, we can just agree that we're a team that's desirable to have in the season. even if that was the case, now there's a high chance we wouldn't make it anyway now, just because of various like schedule conflicts. And I feel like this playoff system sort of begs for that to happen in a way. It doesn't necessarily force it to happen, but it leaves a lot of room for random shit to happen that interferes with finding who the actual best teams are.
Yeah, when you announce it 2 days before the first game, and then the rest of the games have to take place over the course of like a week or whatever, it is asking for this kind of weird shit to happen.
Yeah.
Ombrack, I feel like you're itching to say something to break our echo chamber.
No, I think like timing is off. I don't know if they started to talk about season too late, or I don't know what went wrong, but there's an issue with scheduling. Like whatever you said was right, and there had to be a better way to make it. I don't know why, and I think like historically, Prem playoffs have been a bit poorly organized. I think I remember one playoffs I was involved when I had to play 3 officials in 3 days, and the last day we had 2 officials to play in the same day. So I think there always been some issues about this, and when there's like, if there's always been some issues, I don't understand. People haven't come out with a solution yet.
Yeah.
I think that's the main solution. Again, just comes down to timing. Like I remember again, like similar situation. It was Div 1 playoffs, like it being scheduled when me and another player wasn't available, so we had to play with Mercs, and we didn't make the playoffs. I had to play Div 2, but like it's just, I guess, a lack of notice, a lack of preparation, and a small window to condense when these games into, especially for what is probably the biggest preseason playoff that's ever happened.
Yeah,
you would have thought so.
It's always a bit of a clusterfuck, no matter what kind of playoffs it is. Like I remember an ETF2L Grand Final, I had to play it from Sweden, and Two Nuts was like, I was at Two Nuts' house. Like it was a trip I had planned for like months, so it was like, we couldn't reschedule it for ETF2L. So I played on his PC, and he played on a laptop in his kitchen, on his little fucking kitchen counter. He was playing the Grand Finals on a laptop. That was play or ban season, if anyone remembers that meme. That was where we were just like, fuck it, admins, we're not going to play, like it's a joke. We were going to get rolled anyway. It was like the Epsilon team, like the Pro Style 49 Epsilon team with Raymond. They were going to shit on us no matter what. So we were like, fuck it, we're not going to like embarrass ourselves. We're not going to play. And then they were like, somehow the message got out that if we didn't play it, we were going to get banned. So we just fucking cobbled some shit together and played it. But I feel like it's always a bit like this with ETF2L playoffs. It's sort of, the rest of the season is really like lax, and you can sort of, very, very flexible, and it's very nice like to be a part of in general. But then playoffs comes, and it's suddenly like the fucking iron hammer comes down, and you better motherfucking play what we say, or get the fuck out of the league. It's like, what? I don't know. It's like a real
they trap themselves in these situations, don't they?
Yeah.
Like with the schedule, like by putting a start time on the season, they've then trapped themselves, because as much as Prem is like the peak and the highlight and the pinnacle, there are 6 other divisions who have planned their schedules around this, and they've announced this months ago. Yeah. So they've then trapped themselves into the situation that the season has to start.
It just seems avoidable, like, because I messaged Ayoshi like must have been about a month ago, and I was like, I kind of feared this would happen, because I knew this, like, for example, I knew this concert was happening, so I was like, fuck, I hope it's not that week, because that'll be 1 week gone, that'll be 1 day gone straight away. So I kind of messaged him to like probe, like, basically I just asked him when are playoffs, and he's like, we don't know. I was like, could you give me a rough idea? And he's like, depends how many teams sign up. I was like, okay, maybe you can give me an estimate so I can, sort of prepare in advance. And then the best he could give me was like middle of May. Like that was
the middle of May.
I guess it is, yeah. But it was like it was sort of like getting blood from a stone. Like I don't know if they didn't know the answers, like, or they just didn't want to share or give like information that would then prove to be wrong in the end. But I don't know. I feel like this was so avoidable. Either way, I don't know. Yeah.
Who are you going to see in concert?
The Secret.
I'll go Google that
now. We've had our little detour. Do you want to move on to talking about some other teams then?
Well, I guess it's probably relevant to bring up my team now, because we just talked about all the scheduling issues. Yeah, so
we did.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think about my team. I personally know we're capable of more than we do at the moment. But what I also know is we're going to have our full roster when we play the legendary Team CoolestMaster on Sunday. So I fully expect to give a good show in that game. But after that, I'll be very, very surprised if we have our full roster for any of the other matches. Oh, no, wait. On Tuesday, we're going to have a full roster. But we're not going to have a full roster for any of the other matches, I'm pretty sure.
And what is your full roster for those unaware?
It's me, Rising and Buttnose on Soldier, Rising Aroma, Smizzy and Cookie on Scout, and the Perminator on Medic.
Oh, big boy Perminator. just based on Perm playing medic, that team should probably beat 7 every game, right?
Yes, that was what we were going for.
Yeah,
that was the aim when we started out.
As I said, it is kind of funny just because obviously your team as an entity doesn't and can't really scrim as much as you would expect most of these other teams to be like playing.
We can. We prefer like not to. Like it's like any other week. It's not like a question of available playing days. It's literally just this week we have bad availability. Any other week we can pretty much pick and choose 2 days we want to play, and we just play those 2 days. We only want to play 2 days, so that's how many we play. But ordinarily, if we had this like this week of playoffs, we would be able to like accommodate it. Like I say, like I have 2 very like unflexible things to do this week, so we really should have 3 or 4 days available every week. But we opt to play less because of my wrist and real life commitments and things like that. But 1 week we could make an exception, but since it was literally this week or get the fuck out, it was kind of like, yeah, we can't do much about it.
But either way, just from my point of view, and the fact that there's obviously massive bias anyway, the idea of a team with as many legendary names as yours, I'd like to see you guys in Prem, but also I do quite like the idea of having this real level playing field where people can, it is entirely based on who does play better during the preseason playoffs. It's part of what annoys me about the whole fact that there can be weird factors getting in the way of like these good games. Yeah, because I always find it like quite interesting, the idea that you can have these like big names who are playing a little bit less than the other guys, and yet the other guys, they could work for it and like earn the spot through like fair beans and stuff. I think it's gonna lead to some of those interesting games in the playoffs from my point of view. Just see, the legends against the young up and comers, What are you talking about, CX? What do you want? What are you thinking?
Oh, I was going to say, you sort of went a different direction. I was about to say, like, there is a certain amount that is just kind of unavoidable bad luck. To a certain degree, like Cadus's arrangements, for example. Like, these were set in stone. I guess the problem is the window's too small. But, like I said, like, that's happened to me in teams in the past, like, with other playoffs.
Player ban.
We didn't get banned.
It should be their system. It should be their system for every game. Player on the day or ban, all of you. Go on. It'd be great.
At the start of every week, a random number generator starts, and that tells you when the start time of your match is, and you have to play it that date and time. What?
Or ban.
Ban.
That'd be fun. That'd be exciting.
Yeah, well, back on the actual team, we've played versus you quite a few times. Like we played you 1 month ago, and you were complete garbage, and we 5-0'd you twice, and I was expecting a bit more of you, and then we played you recently, and you put up a better show, and I think that just goes to show like. Even if you're not playing as much as the other teams, you have the background that allows you to play less, but maybe improve better or faster than the other team. I don't know. So on paper, I think it would be best for you to have you in Prem, like for the overall quality. But yeah, as Ipli said, I like the fact that you have to prove yourself again, and I think that's quite good because I don't really know how to feel about Cookie and Samzy. I don't think they are that good at the moment, and I think like that's what I felt from playing versus you. And you, I don't know. I feel like you're bringing back the old tempo style, like not really quick style of play, which is a bit odd because now. I don't. Arctic Foxes played a lot on their DM. I feel like AM's teams plays a lot on DM, of course, and I think it's like a clash of play style between you and the other teams, and I think it's gonna be interesting.
Mate, I have a 3-0 game on Badlands that you can stick somewhere, mate.
This game was actually so slow. We held on our last for like so long. But I think it's just because the map in itself is flawed. But yeah, I feel like you bring back an old play style that you use with Crowns, and you bring it back to the league.
Mate, this team is just like uncontrollable chaos from my perspective. It's like if I say to do something, then like some crazy shit happens, and then if I don't say to do anything, we literally stand still and don't do anything. It's like there's proper like a teething period for us. I genuinely feel like we can get through playoffs. We'll be competitive in the season. Like I honestly think there's a higher, like let's say we scrape through preseason playoffs. I think there's a higher chance then that we would make regular Prem playoffs than the actual chance we make Prem at the moment. It's honestly going to be harder for us to get into Prem than I think to get into Prem playoffs. That's how I kind of feel at the moment. I'm pretty sure we could like pull our shit together given time, but at the moment we're fucking terrible. Like, no
washed up, basically. Bunch of washed up old names, you know.
It's not even like that. Like there's. It's not even that it's just like washed up. It's just sort of. It's kind of like Ombrack says. Like it's like a big clash of like styles, like stylistic things that we sort of have to work out. And yeah, like with my wrist, the way it works is kind of like as time goes on and I get used to playing again, I'll be able to play more and more. But for the time being, I'm kind of limited to 2 to 3 maps a night. So we've only been doing sort of one scrim, like on nights we play. So often we play 21, we sort of come in cold, and just as we're getting into it, we got to stop. But that's something that would go away as the season went on. I would start playing 4 maps a night. So like from my perspective, if we can scrape our asses through preseason, then we'll be a worthwhile team to have around. And I think the name value itself will make us like an interesting team to follow. But we gotta I don't know, I'm gonna call my boys, I think, my big Merc boys for this week. I'm gonna call in the big guns.
But you're already playing with the Merc. Butnose is on our list, so you have to join another Merc now.
I was saying, do you not feel somewhat bad because how are any other teams in Prem gonna actually get to play their games without all-star Merc Butnose, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I'm pretty sure he's the only reason Prem has worked for like the last 7 seasons, you know?
It's the tactic. Also, something I should mention is when the 5050 game that Ombrack mentioned, we had Cookie on combo scout and Smizzy on the flank, and we quickly learned that we'd rather not get shit on and have the roles swap, because basically Sam wanted to.
Why would you even start with that idea?
Sam wanted to play like a different role to what he was used to. Like I feel like we sort of looked at last season and said, okay, this isn't our strongest setup, but it's kind of what people are going to enjoy the most. And last season was kind of bad, so we can probably make it work. But then this season was like a lot more competitive, so we quickly realized, oh no, we blow. Let's try and do something to make ourselves a bit better.
That's an age-old story, though, isn't it? Play for fun before you quickly realise the funnest part is winning.
Yeah, winning is quite nice sometimes. Yeah.
Either way, we swiftly realised it was terrible, and we changed. And since then, we've been a bit better, but we still need to improve a lot. But I think we get better. Like every week, we get better. I mean, last week, I'm pretty sure we only scrimmed like 7, and I don't know, we had a competitive map and got shat on, but I don't know, I feel like we're getting better, but we're just sort of playing teams that are probably a bit out of our depth at the moment too often.
But surely the key for you is you guys are regaining a level rather than trying to find a new level.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's so much, from my experience anyway, it's so much easier to get back to somewhere you've already been than to get there in the first place. But I would say like confidence is low at the moment because we only played hard teams recently. Like I think this week we played Nerd Rage and 7, and that's it. And yeah, like so, like confidence is kind of, it's a bit weak because we didn't have any like lower team to sort of smack. Why does it always do this? Sorry, my little Alexa thing was kicking off. But yeah,
for the record, we're not a strong team anymore, so your argument is invalid.
Well, mate, I would agree, but
you guys are gonna pound. I had so much faith in Nerd Rage last season, and then you boys upset me a bit. But this season's gonna be it, right? Gonna prove all my predictions right, yeah.
I'd like to say yes, but that's not the topic of today.
We'll have to grill you about that some other time, probably. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what are the teams which I actually hadn't seen at all before this big news post, which is quite impressive, I think. Just the fact that one of these teams has been thrown together. I don't know if it's thrown together or was just done a bit in secret. This is this Nation Leave Win team. Another team with a just horrendous name.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So who's actually... Like, Zesty... I'm pretty sure Zesty was, like, on our roster, like, 2 days ago. Or did he never get added? Like, he was gonna... Yeah, he was literally on our roster 2 days ago. What is this team? Please explain.
As I say, well, just in terms of a roster, according to their page, they've got HP and Chris on Scout. Zesty's roaming Nation, or maybe QNX is on Pocket.
That's a joke. What is
this? This is like a
Demo and Turbo Medic.
It's like a who's who of players who are almost good.
Well, see, I was more thinking maybe they did one day play a PugChamp, and then this team just got drafted, and they were like, "Oh, dude, we're owning."
Like
Yeah.
all these players, like all the way back to like QNX was like always one of those players who was you always felt like he could be a top player, but he never really was. Same with like Shappy, Nation, like all these players have sort of been in Prem and sort of quote unquote had that potential. You know, didn't look half bad.
Like
but
this
never
is
quite-
this
never
is the
quite-
Beached Whales B string team.
Basically, I said just the fact that this team turned up. Like I saw them, looked at the roster, was like, I had no idea these guys were even making a team. I think it's just quite impressive. Anyway, like I said, maybe they literally did just throw themselves together and thought, preseason playoffs. We'll see what happens want us to play.
That team went through a reshuffle yesterday because I think Turbo, HP, and Zesty. I think Turbo, HP, and Zesty joined the roster yesterday because beforehand, when they were trying out people, Honey was playing Medic, Sjoberg was playing Scout with XE, and I don't remember who was the soldier at the time, but yeah, like Turbo literally stepped up yesterday. Like they started playing with him yesterday, so I don't think we can say anything about them, about how good they can be, because we don't know. We literally don't know.
You know, when you were asking which teams I would have taken out of playoffs for the sake of having an 18 bracket, probably the one that didn't exist at the time of playoffs being announced. Looking back on it.
Well, they existed, but on a different form,
Yeah, completely different entity.
But they look good. They look actually strong. I think all these players are ex-Prem players, right? Turbo played Prem, HP, Zesty played Prem,
I think
Shappy
Chris
played Prem.
hasn't, but he was quite good.
Chris won LAN, so that's basically the same.
Is it?
I can tell. So for me, if you had to remove one team in the top 4 seed, I would have put them instead.
Get the fuck out of my
as in put
podcast.
this team in top 4.
Yeah. Because their names
with this
are
lineup,
shinier.
or like when they were scheduling, or when they were making playoffs.
This one, not the. I don't know.
Yeah, but doesn't that kind of counter your argument? Because before you said you like stability is a good like factor to include in this top
stability
seed.
is good when skills are equal, and in terms of skill, I think this team is better than the others. Like when you talk about Nunya or Loli Squad, I think this team is better than these two teams. Like they literally when they played Loli Squad recently and they just rolled them.
That's some big claims you're making here.
No, I can sort of
that's-
dig that.
That
yeah,
happens.
like-
So.
I'm banking on this team losing either way because I'm pretty sure Zesty will return to being our backup if they go out early. And that means we'll actually have a roster to play with in the latter end of the week.
So this team has basically 2 teams depending on how they play.
Yeah.
So this team has to be eliminated, or you don't have a roster for halfway through the playoffs.
Potentially, yeah.
But I don't know what happened because Oni was playing with them for like 2 weeks straight, and then he just disappeared, and Turbo joined the roster. So I don't know. I feel like something's fishy. I don't really know what happened there.
So is Honey Badger not in Prem playoffs at all now?
No, it's not.
Is he playing for anyone?
I've heard rumors about like playing with Mel again, but with Lemmings, but for high. But like up until yesterday, Honey was gonna play Prem anyway, either with Reform Lemmings or with this team, and now he's nowhere to be seen. So I think something happened, but I don't know what.
He's a pretty
some big drama.
turbulent character.
Yeah,
was
and
I'm
very,
talking more
democratic.
in-game than anything else, but you know what I mean, like.
yeah, but like I think like he's whether you like him or not, I think he's like we're liking main callers at the time, and I think he's one of the up and coming main callers in the game, and I don't know. I would have liked to see him in Prem again.
Well then, yeah, obviously we'll have to see what happens with whatever ends up happening with these different teams. If not, like just based on the fact that we've got so many teams playing for preseason playoffs, there should be some pretty good looking high teams made out of like the mass which is left over. So maybe he ends up joining one of those and we have a pretty competitive looking high playoffs. You want to go on to one of the teams which I would argue is the least least well known, probably least deserving of a spot, and it is also your first game of the season, not season playoffs. Team CoolestMaster.
Yeah.
With names which I've only ever heard of from Highlander and from playing some like mid/high games.
Like this is just where for me I just have no idea like what's going on.
So for you, this is the team that deserves the left spot in playoffs because Yak's team didn't have 6 players up until yesterday.
I was gonna say my argument was gonna be these guys in Yak's team were like right at the bottom.
Yeah, I think so.
Just literally, yeah, like the fact that the Yak's team, like I didn't want to immediately go to them, but we might as well go to them while we're here. The fact that Yak's team didn't have an actual roster of 6 as of when they were given a spot in preseason playoffs seems like insane to me.
Which team is Yak's team?
Scouts.
Sleep
Club. Yeah, like the team itself made, I believe they got into the first round of high playoffs. Yeah, they did, and they lost to Loli Squad in apparently a pretty close game. But like, my understanding of the team was they were looking for players for like ages and didn't quite know like what was going on. Either way, they didn't actually have scouts until like yesterday, and I think what have they got? They up Scruff and Lucas.
And they got they had Deox for a week now, and yeah, Scruff is filling in for the second scout spot.
It just seems crazy that a team like that can be given like a playoff spot where they
probably worth noting when we talk about like stability before and stability of rosters, like not having 6 players for the first time ever doesn't even put you on that scale of stability. Like they're not even in that conversation.
Like this for me is just where the whole thing gets a little like everything's just like contradictory at this point because stability is clearly being rewarded because you're literally getting like a massive advantage in the format. You get a free win and you have to play one less match like in the week as a whole for being stable and no other reason. Well, no discernible reason. But then teams without 6 players can also take part in the same competition where stability is supposedly rewarded substantially.
It comes across as a cop-out, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it comes across as not wanting to say no to anybody. Like they don't want to say no to anybody, so they sort of just let everyone enter, and then it's settled in game, right? It's settled in game who the best 4 teams are.
I just checked logs. They have 2 logs as a team. They won 1 map versus Ajiskis, and they lost the other. So how I read that is they went into prem playoffs with 1 log.
Yeah, that was the thing I looked at. Didn't they even have like Zesty Merking or something?
Yeah,
like, it wasn't even their proper 6. Yeah, that was what I looked at. I saw like I saw that Yak's team was in it. I was like, that's a bit weird. I went to look at like Yak's logs, and there's like random pug champs, and then 2 games with at least 1 or 2 mercs. I think it was it was definitely Zesty the merc, and then at the time it wasn't clear whether Scruff was going to be playing with them or whatever. The fact that the admins look at that team and then just go right. Put him in, and like I said, like Zek said, like it obviously does make sense. The idea that you can have a reasonably level playing field where people just play and then whoever's the best just goes through. That's fine, but you can't have both let anyone in and also super precise, like constricted timeline for the games. 2 things happening at the same time just makes no sense to me, and I would argue there's not even any real point in it because when you have a team like this, like maybe they're gonna just amaze people and actually be like proper shit hot. But I cannot imagine this team getting really anywhere.
Who's their
just
first game?
Because they don't exist. Their first game.
They're playing versus
the nation team.
I think it's like it's a dead end anyway. Like maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see them winning at all. So, like I feel like admins were turned up because how are we gonna do it? We have 11 teams to play in playoffs. How do we settle this? And then out of nowhere, Yax signs up for Prem, and they're like, there's a team.
Maybe
it's a balancing numbers. You know what I mean? Like a totally to make the format they've decided upon work. Most playoff formats you need an even number of teams. So these guys applied. Why not throw them in the ringer? Like you're already at 11 teams. What's the difference between 11 and 12? Like it's already fucking huge.
It is, but I would argue as well, like. The team CoolestMaster team hasn't proven itself enough in any form to warrant a spot there anyway. So just from those 2 teams, you could have like just made a 10-team kind of setup.
There's something really circular about these playoffs to me. It's like all of these teams that are sort of considered to be in and around the preseason playoff quality they get wins and results against each other.
Yeah.
And then those wins seem to constitute evidence that they're worth being in preseason playoffs. So they're in preseason playoffs in virtue of beating the other teams who are in preseason playoffs who are only there because they beat that team in the first place. It's sort of like, I don't know. It seems really like circular reasoning for a lot of these teams' involvement.
When you look at TCM logs, like the two logs I looked that were good was a win versus one map win versus the Russians, and one win on product versus Loli Squad, but with sniper with war running perma sniper and hitting 10k damage.
And even with that in mind, you have to keep in mind like Loli Squad and Bags of Five, like objectively they're not done anything yet. Like this preseason playoffs,
enough.
Yeah, like these preseason playoffs are to see which teams are worthwhile. Like beating each other shouldn't really mean anything. It just means it doesn't mean anything. It should be like a tiebreaker. Like, okay, we really can't. Like, both of these teams have taken maps from last season's Prem teams. We can't decide between them. Okay, who beat who? Like amongst those teams. But it seems like literally just scraping maps against each other is enough. Apparently.
Yeah, it seems like they're quite a disappointing thing. Like, obviously, if you only have 4 active Prem teams, it's a bit difficult for everyone to be playing against them at like different times to get some decent games. But it does seem a bit pointless. The idea that you've just got this mass of pretty untested, unproven teams playing against each other, and that seems to be enough to warrant these kind of spots. It does seem weird, and like I said, maybe the admins, like, their logic is the first best of 3 is single elimination, so that cuts effectively 4 teams immediately. But I would argue
just
you
bizarre,
wouldn't need that setup at all.
But that's
like everyone is entering here as equals. Essentially, no one has done anything to like actually separate themselves from the pack. That's like the assumption you make when you go into like a bracket. It doesn't make any sense that like some teams have advantages over the others, like as big as a free win. It's just like, at least for me, that doesn't make any sense. It's just like completely going against competitive integrity. Like for me, like say Shappy's team, like Ombrack will vouch that Shappy's team is one of the stronger teams here and could very well end up being in the top 4. Like if, say they have like roster issues this week and they can't get people 4 nights of the week and they lose to a team with a Merc who only had to play 3 matches or 2 matches, maybe they win in 2 and go straight through, there'll always be like an asterisk next to that, like saying, what would have happened if it hadn't been like inherently disadvantaged against them? You'll like always like have this little asterisk. So for me, it's just like, I don't know why it's like this.
I feel like we always go back to the fact that there's an issue in timing. Either the signups were too late or there's something iffy with the timings. I think we just go back to that all the time.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. There's finally a team worthy of some decent discussion again, though, which is quite good because we got the Lego boys. We got new face Lego. We have Phil Medic, Josh Pocket, Demul on Roma. Domo is now on demo. They have Potato and Yippee on scouts, which is an interesting odd roster, obviously. Domo's from 3 out of 6. Potato, I can't remember what he was last on, but he's been around on quite a few different things. He played with
HKN in high last season.
Okay. We got a recognizable core for Lego. We've got some new boys. Logically, I don't know, like obviously the Lego core I would expect to, they've played with each other long enough. There was obviously the thing which people are going to immediately go for is the fact that Sarx was a free agent and didn't end up going with Lego. Or Lego didn't want to go with Sarx.
But
either way,
well, I think it just. I don't think Lego has any Ghost Gamer in his roster, so that's the reason.
That's the bit of a problem. Either way,
they didn't what?
They don't have any girls in their roster.
Oh right, yeah. So. I'm with you, bro.
They the thing which I did here at one point was that there was a potential for Zen maybe playing, assuming Sarx would, which would have been pretty PogChamp. But obviously Sarx didn't happen. And maybe, Zen, the whole Zen thing was like a bit of a bait anyway. But that would have been a hell of a roster. But instead, we have this kind of new look Lego, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. I haven't seen any real logs or games. Have we got anything interesting, any good results?
I think so. Yeah, like when we talked about Nunya earlier, Lego lost to Nunya like 3-0 on product, but they won 6-1 on Granary. So I think like that just goes to show Nunya has to pick good maps, but Lego has room to work with and can definitely make his way up to Prem. One thing interesting to say about is they try out a lot of scouts like EP, Potato, I think Diaz, and they try out Eisen, but somehow he didn't make it. So I don't know if he just wasn't good enough or he didn't want to play. But with Eisen, I feel like they could have better chances to make it through.
Can't help but feel really underwhelmed by this Lego roster because the first night they sort of tried to put something together to scrim. They had Phil on demo, they had Condom Merking Medic, and they had Izon playing. So it was literally just missing Sorex from their old roster. And so I kind of had this picture in my head that it was like really like a proper Lego comeback. But now kind of looking at this roster, yeah, it's probably, it's probably going to be pretty decent. Like if they can get through playoffs, like there's definitely potential there. Like Potato has always been a player with like quite a lot to offer. Domo was one of like the better pieces of 3 out of 6. I always felt like, and Phil was definitely going to be like fine on Medic. But looking back to kind of what I hoped when I first heard Lego were coming back and what they have now, difficult not to be slightly underwhelmed. I don't really know what to expect from them, to be honest, because I think they only got this roster together. Like they sort of cobbled it together. In the end, like they had to make last-minute decisions. Like they were always going to have 6, and it was just a question of who they took. But they haven't done a whole lot together yet. So I feel like they're probably in a pretty similar situation to my team, where there's a lot of room for growth quickly, but can they sort of pull themselves together in time to scrape through playoffs and improve it in the regular season?
The question mark for me in this team is EP. I don't really know how well he can play because Fuelox, we played versus them, he didn't really shine. But Phil told me that he wasn't used to play a pocket scout role, so maybe that's just it. He just needs to fit in,
Is he still on that role now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Lego is one of these teams that at the moment is capable of the best, but of the worst at the same time. We just spoke about TCM, like how they didn't deserve the spot. Yet they drew Lego on one map, so there's. I think they're like a roller coaster. They can have really great results, but can choke the other day.
Yeah, I think like maybe on like when you compare it to like former Lego rosters with like the Sorex and Izon era, like you kind of underestimate how much those scouts do.
Yeah.
But then again, that was against top Prem teams, opposed to these sort of pre-playoffs, which is sort of a mixture of low Prem and high teams. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but I'm not convinced. I'm not like the way Josh and Demul play Soldier. I think they capitalize on like it only works within a team environment. Like I don't think they're just like their raw fragging power is enough.
How much does Demul play now?
Not much.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago, probably like a good month ago, where Phil said to me he was like starting to put together this team, and it was always the plan to have this like him, Demul, and Josh as like the main like combo, and they were going to just like fill in the blanks. So presumably, they must have been pretty serious about doing it for like quite a while. But if Demul still isn't like playing that much, it kind of makes you wonder if it's kind of like a throwaway team where maybe if they don't make preseason playoffs, it doesn't really work. Maybe they don't bother with high. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I fear a bit. Like, if we're talking about how high could look after these playoffs, I don't see Lego keep on playing if they don't make it to Prem. Like, Phil and Josh played high last season, and that was okay. But I think there's a reason if they wanted to go in Prem again. Like, maybe they don't like high isn't suited for them, and like it depends a lot on Demul as well, like how much he wants to play. But I think he's their star player, he's their playmaker, and if he plays well, they will go through the playoffs. But yeah, I don't see them keeping on playing if they don't make it. That'd be a shame, I think.
Yeah, it would be a shame. Like I said, it's a bit unfortunate or like whatever that we couldn't get a proper old style Lego together, because I think that would have been a welcome addition into this season. It would have just added another real solidified big name Prem team to the group, but obviously didn't happen. So
there's questions about if he's not playing as much as well, like the same way we talked about Cookie and Samsy earlier. Like however many seasons ago, and that would have been like your all-star scout combo. Whereas now you're questioning if it's even good enough to get you through preseason playoffs. Like the same thing can happen if other players don't play as much
No.
or try and coast on their previous stuff.
Ombrack's questioning whether it's enough. It's definitely enough. Game. It's just a question: can we get these 6 motherfuckers on the server together at the same time? That's our problem.
That's your difficulty. Your problem is getting to the starting line, not so much the finish line.
We're that fucking washed out. We can't even get in the server.
All that's really left in terms of teams is this Ora Elektro team, which their page is a little bit useless, and they've got so many different people, all people which I recognize from Pug Champs. I don't know. Ombrack, do you actually know what their roster is? I hope you do.
I can only guess, but yeah, I don't really know. I've been looking at the logs, of course, as I did everyone else, but nothing stood out. They won one map versus Loli Squad, but what is one map versus the struggling team?
Yeah.
They lost versus the Frenchies. I think they'll just go through like unnoticed.
Another one of the old Pug Champ teams, which people fancied at the time. Fair enough. If there's not anything too much.
It is worth to say that some of these players played together in previous qualifiers, and they actually played a bit better than expected. But I think, and the other thing to say is they play with Leto on demo, and I'd like to recall that Leto has a 100% win record in Prem.
How many games is that?
1. But still.
This is a Prem
looking to keep that up then. Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you're saying if he makes it a Prem, then
they will be unstoppable.
Yeah, so surely he wants to lose to maintain that 100% win record in Premvo, right?
Like he's going to sabotage them.
Yeah, he's going to sabotage so he can sort of retire eventually with this 100% win record in Prem, like the highest win percentage in Prem. So you got to stay away from it to keep that record.
So that's guaranteed they won't ever make it. We have a new look Bags of 5, DQZ and Lippy on Scouts, Chemical, Roma, Dima Pocket, Dittoed on Demo, and Enye on Medic. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly. It's obviously not as good of a Bags of 5 roster as there's been previously, and there's a bunch of guys who are like, decent high gamers, but they ain't. So I don't know.
Yeah,
have they had any interesting results?
They are one of the dark horses in these playoffs because there's always the Russians have this reputation of playing like freely. I'd say like going full VM sometimes and playing so retard it works, and I think they have their shot at it. I actually think they can. I think they will surprise more than one.
Mate, you can never count out the Russians. You have to be an idiot to count out the Russians. Who are they playing?
They're
3.5 stars.
Yeah, which is our last team to have a bit of a discussion about.
I reckon Bags of 5 beat them just in virtue of pure Russianness.
And
you can't out-Russian the
Russians.
Russians.
They beat them in the high finals like 3 seasons ago, but they had Mr. Epic at the time.
What you're saying is it's an absolutely epic grudge rematch.
Yeah.
To be fair, like traditionally, like the Russians never really choke. Like they play their own version of TF2, and they just do it regardless of logic or reason or how the game's going. So they never really choke in official settings because they just do what they want to do.
Because really,
Sometimes
you're not sure whether they're aware of what's actually going on, like the score or the game. Really, they're just doing their thing. They're just like, I see, man, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him.
Yeah, like does an otter know it's being cute, or is it just living its life? Is it playing up to the audience, or is it just doing what it wants to do?
Exactly. The Russians are the otters of ETF2L.
Yeah, write that one down.
Yeah,
putting a fine line of positive national stereotyping here, guys. Just about getting away with it.
It's that point in the episode where the vast majority of people have probably given up trying to watch, so we can sort of say what we want.
Let's struggle through to the finish line of the teams and just go over what the very last roster is. 3.5 stars or whatever their name is. And Olga on Scout, Raf on Roma, Dawl on Pocket, Alien Smiley on Demo, Sans on Medic. Bunch of guys which I think they've done decently in high before, most of them. Maybe even a couple of them made like high playoffs, but another team which I wouldn't really expect is going to be like actually contesting Prem teams.
Yeah, they won't. But I think Baxter versus them will be the closest game of the four first games. I think.
Yeah, like I said, it is two kind of teams where you're just like you have no real idea. You wouldn't expect them to be making Prem, but like against this kind of mishmash of like I/Prem teams, basically anything could happen. So that could be quite an exciting game, you know. Probably won't really mean anything because I wouldn't expect either team to make it through. But
it's single elimination as well, which always just makes the results more high stakes, a bit more random anyway, just because it all comes down to that one night. You have one bad night and you're out of the playoffs.
Yeah, that's for you, Kato. One bad night and you're out. You're feeling the pressure, you know.
Feel the pressure. It's going to be a close one.
If you lose to TCM and that's you knocked out, that is going to be your new reputation. Just keep an eye on that. So right, we've got our 12 teams. Just to reiterate, AMS team, ChampGG, also known as Adiski team, Nunya, Loli Squad, the Nation team, TCM, Lego, Sleep Club, Perminators, Ora Elektro, Bags of 5, and 3.5 stars. Obviously, only 4 of these teams can get through. I think we should probably do some nice little predictions at this point, since we've gone over the teams. What do you think, Ombrack? Who is your 4?
I'm of course Adiski's, and then gonna play out between Kato's team, or should I say Perm team, Lego, and I'm in Chappie's. I think Chappie has a spot, so either Lego or I think some big ex-Prem player won't make it.
That'd be mortifying for them. What are you thinking? With your definitely no bias.
I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to look at the bracket at the moment, and I'm trying to figure out what happens if, let's say, Am's team beefs it in the upper bracket and loses to Shappy team. I'm just trying to figure out who will they play.
Because that could
most
happen.
likely. Like if that happens, then it's going to be someone from the other side of the bracket. I can't figure out who because this is so difficult to look at.
So was that so Bug Slayers versus the winner of Lego, or the loser of Bug Slayers versus the winner of Lego and Ora Elektro, and the loser of that would play Am's team if they went to the lower bracket.
No. The entire first round is single elimination. So it's whoever loses between Bug Slayers and the. Oh yeah, is that what you said? Whatever.
Yeah. So the winner of Lego versus Ora Elektro will play Bug Slayers, and the loser of that plays Am's team. If they, I feel like we need like an on-screen visual diagram of this to try.
Yeah, it's overly complicated.
I love the bit.
So wait, if I'm correct, Am's team is going to play. Let's say they happen to lose in the upper bracket. They would play the winner of match 14, which would be either it'll be one of like hypothetically, it's going to be one of. It could very easily be Lego or My Guys, right?
Yeah.
So if Am's team was to slip up against a Shappy team, then in theory, Am's team could then have to eliminate arguably one of these teams who may otherwise have made it. So for me, like in terms of predictions, I kind of feel like Am's team might slip up in the upper bracket. I think they'll make it through anyway, but that makes it complicated for me. Not complicated, but at least it adds a twist, you know?
The whole thing is made unreasonably complicated from the fact that I'm looking at it on the ETF2L site, and it's like I have an entire web page here. Can I just use some of it?
You got like the 8 pixel by 8 pixel screen to try and view the tournament bracket.
There's another one. There's this one as well. I don't know if you guys see it before.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, Breads. Okay, so it's Am's team's gonna make it. I believe in my boys, multiple mercs, but we're gonna I'm actually just gonna call in the fucking big guns. I'm adding Happy Cool to the roster. Nice. It's fucking happening. I'm not joking, by the way.
I'd like to point out from previous experience that that time I mentioned earlier when we lost Div 1, well, the playoffs to get into Div 1, we couldn't field our roster, so we hired Ips and Admirable, current Prem players on Crackland at the time, to merc on their main classes, Pocket and Medic, in place of me and I want to say Koichi on Pocket. So, instant upgrade. I come home from work that day to find we've been eliminated and I'm playing in Div 2. So, just a small word of caution about bringing in the big guns. Sometimes you think you're locking it in, but you might have just secured your own demise.
Well, it's the big guns or no guns at this point. So either way, we're gonna bring in the big guns. I reckon I'm gonna say it. We're gonna make it. We're gonna do it. I believe. And we're gonna do it alongside Am's team, Adiski team, and I don't know how the fuck the bracket works. So I don't know who the fourth team is gonna be. I'm gonna say it's gonna be Shappy team, but fuck knows because this bracket's really complicated.
Yeah, I would say without looking at the brackets because that's just straight too complicated. I think quite disappointingly, I think we all have a similar idea. Like the AMS and Disky team do look good. Like the Nation team, I think I've been mostly convinced just by Ombrack's reporting back at them. Before I was like, oh, I don't know, but after you've been given this, bigging them up a bit, I reckon maybe they got it. Lego, I'm a little bit biased. I'd like to see Lego back in just for some of the name value. I'd like to see Perminators in for like the name value. But I thought between those three teams, I can't really see the teams like Loli Squad and Nunya properly making it through considering the competition. But at the same time, they're really going to be wanting to.
I take it back. I'm going with Lego. Fuck Shappy team. Lego's going to do it.
It should be noted that if Lego, like the bracket's kind of stacked kind of weird. So like, say ChampGG beats Perminators and Lego also lose their game, they're stuck on the same side of the lower bracket. So one of them has to not make it. So other than that, like if...
So the loser of Champ probably plays Lego or Bugslayers? Yeah. Okay. That'll be an interesting one.
So that's what I mean. So it's sort of stacked in a weird way. So from the other side of a bracket, from like the Loli Squad and team side of a bracket, one of those teams, whoever wins the initial game, bags of fire 3.5 stars, no DD plus 5 abs and Sleep Club. One of those teams is probably more likely to make it into the playoffs just through sheer bracket structure.
I don't claim to be an expert on some of these teams, but my gut is telling me, like, if I was to place these teams, like, regardless of matchups or any of this shit, just who do I think is the strongest team, 1 to 8, 4 of my top 5 is on the lower side of the bracket. As in, not the lower bracket, but like the bottom half of the bracket.
Yeah, it feels like the bottom half is harder to go through.
Yeah, it's like, for me, 4 out of the top 5 teams are there. Like, Am's team is the best, and then the next 4, like, best teams, for me, it's Champ, us, Lego, and Nunya. For me, they're the next. Maybe, like, Shappy's team's a massive wildcard. I don't know about those guys, but of the teams who I can reliably predict their current level of skill, 4 of the top 5 are in this area of the bracket, which seems kind of harsh, but we'll see what happens.
Classic admins again, though,
But they did finish a season in highs, so they're very stable.
But is there a world where AMS doesn't make it?
I can't see it really.
Well, no, if they beef the first game,
they play
Kado's team, right?
Yeah,
that's a full beef. That's like a more realistic potential for like full elimination.
If AM's team is shit enough to beef one of their games in the upper bracket, they're definitely shit enough to beef one of the lower bracket games. So, like, I feel like it's realistic, they could beef one, and then who knows what happens after that? It's going to be their first match.
That's part of the idea of playoffs, though, isn't it? Like the idea is to take like traditionally ETF2L works over like an entire season, so whoever wins the most out of 7 games wins. Whereas now we've transitioned to like a more playoff heavy, like both before and after.
Yeah.
It makes it a bit more random because it all comes down to that one game or to that one night and that one best of 3 series.
Yeah, I feel like, you know what, like, I fully expect AM's team to win, but knowing the potential for players in that team to have, like, kind of tilted in the past, playing their first match, like, ever against a full Russian lineup is not the best, like, prospect. I mean, obviously you expect them to win, but I feel like no matter how mediocre a Russian team looks, they always really, like, they're tricky, they test you no matter what.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could be a challenge even in itself. But if they get through that, I reckon they're like gold. They're just gonna like do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be one of those. They're either gonna like 5-0 it in 15 minutes, or they're gonna lose it. There's not a lot of in between.
They're going to be their own worst enemy, I think.
That's one of these games where maps are going to be so important because you don't really want to fall in Russian's trap.
Yeah.
Plus, you have to bear in mind, like, you talk about like last season with ChampGG, and part of their biggest downfall was setting themselves this unrealistic goal.
Yeah.
Like, walking into this bracket, if you're AMS's team, like, you're expecting to go through, right?
Yeah, you're going.
As far as you're concerned,
no,
this is.
Don't say that.
No,
You're
not expecting.
And the team is the clear favourites.
It's not only to go through. It's not only to go through. It's like to breathe through. It's like to fight for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I mean? You're playing this Russian team, right? You don't just expect to win. You expect to win comfortably, to win easily. You expect to be able to maybe dick around a little bit. Like, if you start having these really close games against these teams who you think are shit, like, it's for sort of roster, and that's just gonna tilt themselves.
Yeah.
When like someone makes that call in a team where you're just like, no, come on, these guys are fucking shit, let's just win. And at that point, you've lost the game.
Yeah, that's literally it. The second you're just like, this is it. Come on, guys, just start paying attention, and then no, that's it. Game's literally over at that point. I'm gonna say, just considering we spent 2 months talking about how this is looking to be like a really solid season of Prem with all these like interesting teams coming up, can I just put out an open message to all the big name teams hoping to get through preseason playoffs? Just don't tilt, for Christ's sake. Like, if we manage to get through this whole thing and it ends up just massive upsets everywhere, and we end up with like all the no-name teams getting through, we're gonna have another season of Prem like last time.
That means I go third, so I take it.
That's it. It's fine. If that happens, then we'll just fold 7, and then you guys get easy first, right?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty good. I don't even know how much can be discussed additionally on like specific matchups and stuff. Like, so many things are random. Like you said, the
really
lower group of people are kind of a bit more
brackets.
Yeah, like, I think it's gonna be really weird. Thankfully, the admins have been, sensible enough to not put any of the very first games between like 2 proper like contenders, really. Basically every team, every one of like the single elimination matchups have what should be a clear winner, as long as we have an actual 6 versus 6 setup, which, as previously discussed, who knows if that's actually gonna happen. Honestly, if Sleep Club turn up to their game and actually have all 6 players, like,
they could do something.
Good on you guys. Good on you guys. You've managed to create a team in about 24 hours. Maybe they could beat the Nation team. Maybe I don't know. All these teams are so weird. Like, I would argue that the teams you should have just never included in preseason playoffs were the ones that didn't have their 6. Really, just.
Yeah, but it's kind of at a point now where it's almost so chaotic, it's just going to be like an entertaining mess.
I think this is like the first lot of preseason playoffs I'm probably going to be quite interested in seeing, just because it's going to be just the weirdest teams battling out against each other, desperate to try and point and maybe get a shiny little medal for the season. But I don't know. Have we got any additional points we want to raise on season playoff things? I don't remember what we've gone over. We spent ages talking.
Mate, I think we've covered it pretty well.
When does the last game happen? Is it on Thursday?
I mean, technically, I think the schedule allows for it to be played on the Friday as well.
Yeah, okay.
I'm pretty sure the 20th is, or even the Saturday, was it? Wait, it says here, I can't read.
Saturday,
yeah, the 20th. It says you can play on the 20th, apparently. Loser bracket round 2 can be played from the 18th to the 20th. So we'll be looking to play that on the 20th. But if anyone lets us, that's another story.
You gotta get there first.
Well, yeah, like, assuming we make it there. We'll be looking to push the schedule to its limits, but I don't know. But yeah, in theory, it's all happening on Thursday, unless weird stuff happens. But technically, it could go for longer.
It just seems crazy.
Saturday games.
Just looking at the dates again, the fact that you've got all of these fucking games just in 1 week. It's baffling. Admins, please, next time. We make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. We're human. Next time, please don't make this happen in a week again. Not if you can have this many teams. Just
I don't want to
insane.
be this guy, but if it's season 27 That means you have 27 seasons of experience and prior mistakes to go off. Like if I do something badly for the 27th time, different people. Let's not throw too much shade.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Well done. We respect your attendance. Please don't ban us.
Play or ban.
Yeah, any other real important points you want to bring up? Or are we quite happy with everything?
I think we've covered it quite well, mate.
Yeah, well, sounds good. That's more or less all we have to say on preseason playoffs then. Wanna do some glorious kind of shout outs? Anyone? Ombrack? You are the guest. Who do you want to give some shout outs to?
I don't know. Admins for having such nice playoffs organized. And yeah, have fun.
Yeah. CX, anything?
Shout out to my bladder for making it this far in one sitting.
Very impressed. Kato, anything?
Shout out to everyone playing, all 12 teams. Thanks for playing, and shout out to Ryan for like the 5th episode in a row, listening to us blabber on for like 2 hours while taking no credit whatsoever. Thanks, bro.
It's pretty good. Yeah, Loris, if anyone knows him, he is our executive producer man who does basically all the difficult things.
Surely he's the full producer.
Well, I
like,
don't
who's
really
the
know the difference between the producer and
he's executive
producer.
producing for.
I think it's also him. I think he's just every episode we give him another title just to make him feel better.
Oh, okay.
I'll give some shout outs to anyone who watched, donated, attended, or was part of Hugs last weekend. It was good stuff. It was good. Anyone who is so inclined and very interested in it, your medals and stuff's gonna be coming soon. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't message me. Don't leave comments on my Steam. I get enough of those. Yeah, that's all good.